सैयद मुरसलीन व अहले बैत तय्यबीन अत्ताहिरीन अल-मासूमीन व लानतुल्लाहि अला क़ौम ज़ालिमीन। अम्मा बाद फ़क़द क़ाल अल्लाह सुब्हानहु व तआला फ़ी क़ुरानिल मजीद व फ़ुरक़ानिल हमीद व क़ौलुहुल हक़। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। क़ुल हुवल्लाहु अहद अल्लाहुस समद लम यलिद वलम यूलद वलम यकुन लहू कुफुवन अहद। सलावत।
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद।
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, today is the second lecture in the series of English lectures this Muharram. And as mentioned yesterday, today we are going to discuss Tawheed, the presence and the oneness of Allah.
Bismillah.
This is obviously the most important topic in Aqaid or beliefs, and is also one of the most difficult and dry topic. So your concentration and cooperation is very much needed in this discussion. Every child and every grown-up in this audience obviously knows that Tawheed is the very first of our 5 usul-e-Deen. There are 5 usul-e-Deen which make us a Shia Muslim, and Tawheed is obviously the first one of them. Without beliefs in usul-e-Deen, we cannot be Shia Muslim, but also without belief in Tawheed, no one can actually be Muslim at all. So that obviously includes our Sunni brothers. I don't know if there are any Sunni brothers or sisters around today, but this is the commonality between our beliefs and their beliefs and all the Muslims' beliefs. Tawheed means not just there is God or the God exists, but also there is only one God. That's basically the definition of Tawheed. The ayat that I recited as the subject heading of today's talk is very famous and known to everybody. It's the 112th surah of Quran Pak called Surah Ikhlas, and the translation goes like, Qul huwallahu ahad, say O Prophet that there is one God, Allah is only one. Allahus Samad, Allah is eternal, self-sufficient master, and somebody who's free of wants. Lam yalid walam yulad, he was neither born nor anybody was born of him. Walam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad, and there is none comparable to him. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
This is basically what actually Tawheed means. Nobody can describe Tawheed much better than that, or even as good as this at all. And inshallah we'll learn much more about Deen from whatever Maulana Sahib is going to talk to us about. But perhaps it should also be stressed out from the outset that in Shia faith, the beliefs in usul-e-Deen is something that we do not or we cannot have as a following. In other words, taqleed. So you have to have belief in usul-e-Deen with logic. You must understand, accept, and be satisfied in your own hearts that all the beliefs of usul-e-Deen that there are, that you're happy with them. You cannot just say that I believe there is only one God because my father told me that, or very learned scholar told me once, or even Rasulullah told me that. You need to be happy and satisfied in your own heart that this is true. Obviously, if the logic given to you by your parents or your scholars or whoever that might be gives you that satisfaction, that's obviously good enough. But you need to be satisfied yourself. You just cannot follow anybody. So let's discuss this Aqidah of Tawheed in a little bit more detail today. As you all know, I am a doctor, so basically a medical scientist. And so for today's talk, I will discuss inshallah some scientific arguments towards the Aqidah of Tawheed. I'll present some arguments, or one argument at least, by one of a very renowned philosopher and scientist of today. followed by a discussion or dialogue that our sixth Imam had with somebody about this, and if time permits, we'll talk more about Tawheed in the words of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam.
MashaAllah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Alvin Plantinga is the name of a professor of emeritus at the University of Notre Dame. He is a firm believer in God, as opposed to many of his colleagues worldwide. In a recent interview, he argued in favor of Tawheed and gave his most, he was asked what is the most favorite argument that you have for Tawheed, and I'll read it out to you what he said. And I think it requires a bit of concentration because it's quite dense. And it says, one presently rather popular argument is fine-tuning. Fine-tuning. Scientists tell us that there are many properties our universe displays such that if they were even slightly different from what they are, in fact, life, or at least our kind of life, would not be possible. So it has to be fine-tuned. The universe seems to be fine-tuned for life. For example, if the force of the Big Bang had been different by 1 part in 10 to the 60th, life of our sort would not have been possible. The same goes for the ratio of the gravitational force to the force driving the expansion of the universe. If it had been even slightly different, our kind of life would not have been possible. In fact, the universe seems to be fine-tuned not just for life, but for intelligent life. This fine-tuning is vastly most likely given theism than given atheism. Now this is a very powerful argument, and I would like you to, all of you, to think more in depth of this, but I would also like to jolt your memory a little bit. Those of us who are old enough to remember a great philosopher and jurist, faqih, Shahid Khamis, Ayatullah Baqir Sadr, you may have read one of his books called He, His Messenger and His Message. And if you haven't, and if you have any interest in science, I recommend this book to you. It's a very small book, very short book, and it's a wonderful book in that subject. He has given actually the same arguments that Mr. Plantinga has given on the existence of Allah. And one of the most important arguments he had put forward was indeed the way science explains and accepts arguments. So if there is something which can be nicely explained and solves a lot of confusions by just one explanation, scientists are more likely to accept that argument as opposed to lots of arguments to explain the same thing in various different ways, but not one on its own. So this is something called, you might have heard, Occam razor. So it's this, which basically means that the simplest explanation is often the best. But I'd also, I don't want to go too much in detail of this, but I would now like to present to you one of the arguments that our sixth Imam, Hazrat Imam Jafar Sadiq presented it as a dialogue to somebody called Abu Shakir. Now Abu Shakir was a very interesting but a very intelligent character as well, who had doubts on the existence of Allah, although he did make idols and worshipped them and sold them as well, but he had great doubts on the existence of Allah. He came to Imam and asked questions, and he was very rude to start with, and lots of students of Imam tried to stop him, but Imam asked them to let go because obviously he saw potential in that man and he wanted this argument to come forward. And because there were so many students there, they wrote down everything that went on. So I'll just mention brief and relevant bits of that dialogue. So Abu Shakir argued that a thing which could not be seen, touched, tasted or heard cannot exist. So Imam said, do you hear the sound of the movement of blood in your body? It makes a full circuit of your body. If the circulation of the blood stops for a few minutes, you will die. Remember, this is being said at 1200 years ago. Okay, so the science and the logics, just imagine. Then Imam asked Abu Shakir whether he had seen tiny living beings which Allah has created in his body. Then he continued, it is because of these small creatures and their wonderful work that you are kept alive. They are so small that you cannot see them. Since you are a slave of your own senses, you do not know about their existence. These small creatures are born in your body, multiply in your body, work in your body, and die in your body. But you never see them, touch them, taste them, or hear them in your life.
MashaAllah.
And therefore, obviously that the things exist even though you can't see them or touch them with your own senses. Then Imam pointed to a huge stone in front of them and he said, Abu Shakir, do you see that stone? To you it seems lifeless and motionless. Just imagine, and those students, especially the children who have learned and heard of some science, just consider what he's talking about. This seems lifeless and motionless because you do not see the brisk motion which is inside this stone. Again, it is lack of knowledge or your ignorance which would not let you believe that there is a motion within this stone. And listen, the time will come when the learned people would see the motion which is in the stone. And of course, any student of the science now knows very well that the atom is there and the electrons run around and move so fast that it's very difficult to imagine without even seeing it. So I think I'll have to skip a few more things in the time of interest. But then Imam said after a little while, Abu Shakir, do you see air? The air on which your very existence depends? You only feel it when it moves. Can you refuse to believe in the existence of air? Can you deny that to grow and get green, the grass needs many things like seeds, soil, water, air, a suitable climate, and above all, a strong managing power which may coordinate the actions of these different elements. That managing and coordinating power is Allah.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
All scientists, Imam goes on, all scientists and all scholars, even those who do not believe in Allah, believe in the existence of a creative force, although they may call him by different names. It's 8 o'clock. I think unfortunately in the interest of time I'll have to leave the remaining dialogue, but I recommend it to you. It's a very interesting dialogue, you should read it. And I think I'll have to leave the great khutbah, which is khutbah number 185 in Nahjul Balagha, about Tawheed, which Amir al-Mu'minin has explained so beautifully that Allah cannot be understood by the characteristics as we know it. The characteristics as we know it, you can't understand Allah by just them. And it was indeed the very core of Islam, including the concept of Tawheed, which was in danger of being denied. So the torch bearer of Tawheed, Imam Hussain al-Islam, came out to reach Karbala today, the 2nd of Muharram, and saved Islam by providing the greatest sacrifice. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll continue our discussion and we'll talk about the concept of Imamat. Wa Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.